Today on the channel, we're going to paint and assemble a do-it-yourself guitar kit from Fesley. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of a series that I'm doing on a do-it-yourself guitar kit that I got from Fesley. Okay, so here's the body up close. I showed this in my prior video, part 1 of this video. This is the Fesley Strat style body. This thing is prepped and super clean. It is so smooth. It is ready for paint. There's not a flaw or a scratch or anything on this. It feels like it's got some kind of coating on it, so I hope that this paint adheres properly and dries properly, so I'm a little concerned about that because it just feels so nice. It almost feels like it's got something on it already, but we'll see. But I've chose jungle green. This is some really good strong adhesive paint. Should work on metal, wood, whatever. I'm gonna put this on there. I've got some Watco lacquer. This lacquer is awesome. It usually dries in about 10 or 15 minutes. This is about 12, 13 bucks per can. I think I paid about 7 for this. I've got some glitter because we're gonna do some special arts and crafts, and I've got an oil-based paint Sharpie because I'm gonna do some artwork on this guitar. So a little adventurous on this video. I hope that the paint adheres well. I hope that the lacquer doesn't mess up this paint. I hope the glitter thing that I've got in mind works out okay, and that the lacquer will go over this Sharpie. Okay, so we'll see. But it was a $100 body. I'm not going to film everything in detail because I don't want this video to be an hour or too long. The point is to have some fun today, get this thing put together as stock from the box. And then later on, if I want to upgrade the bridge or pickups, I can do that later. But for now, we're going to put it together as Fesley intended. And we'll see what it turns out to be like. So let me get this thing painted and I will be back shortly. I'm gonna hang this up in my shop. I'm gonna run a wire through one of these hooks or through one of these holes and hang it up and spray paint it a couple times carefully, and we'll be back shortly and show you the results. Okay, so phase 1 of many. I've got the body painted. First couple coats, put a little bit of glitter on it before the lacquer. I'm gonna flip this body over in about 60 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and paint the other side, but I've got the sides and the top painted. Paint's coming out really nice, looks perfect for what I'm trying to do. I don't know about this glitter. I'm kind of having second thoughts on it, but when I put the lacquer on it, it ought to be pretty cool. Decided to paint it outside today. It's pretty cool outside and it's in the afternoon, late afternoon, so you know, it's perfect weather for that. There's no bugs, not a lot of dust. So, hey, we're gonna make it work one way or the other, just have some fun. So, wanted to give you an update. All right, everybody, this is day 2. I spent a few hours yesterday painting it, letting it dry, painting it some more, letting it dry. I sprinkled some glitter on it. I've done a couple glitter guitars before, and I just sprinkle light glitter on it. It does leave it with a little bit of a sandy, gritty feeling, so I'm gonna take some really fine sandpaper and sand this down so it's smoother, and then I'm going to do some artwork on the front and the back of the guitar, which will be a surprise. I'm going to show that in my next update, and then once the artwork is on there, I'm going to shoot it with Watco gloss lacquer and a bunch of lacquer, and then buff it down, and once it's ready to go, we just have to put it back together. So got a little bit of a theme going here. Hopefully you'll like it. Hopefully it'll come out okay. We'll see. So let's do it. Okay, so I've got the artwork on the guitar. What I've got is an alien theme. Surprise, surprise, if you know me. I love aliens. I kind of have an alien theme on my channel. So there's the alien eyes. And on the back of the guitar, I've got this 50s looking UFO with a UFO with an alien in it. So Joe Satriani used to draw on his guitars with Sharpies and do artwork and stuff. So that sort of inspired me. So everything is smooth, feels really nice. I've got the glitter. I don't know if the camera's picking up the sparkle on it very well. I did paint the headstock. The headstock is green also, so I have a matching headstock. But so yeah, it's an alien guy and the ship on the back. I think it's cool. So I'm going to spray some lacquer on it. What I'm going to do is lay it down flat on a box, and I'm going to layer some Watco gloss lacquer on the top of it. In my experience with the Watco stuff, it dries in like 10 minutes. So I'll do this top part maybe 6 or 7 times, get the sides of it, make sure it's not going to run. Got to be careful, and then I'll flip it once it's fully dry and get the back. And once we're done doing that, we can assemble it. Oh, and I got to do the lacquer on the headstock also. So the next update will be with the lacquer on it. Cool. Okay, I've got the lacquer applied to the guitar and the headstock. Here's the headstock. It says S4 on it. For those of you that aren't who aren't alien nerds like me, S4 is another name for Area 51. So this is the S4 guitar. Now, one thing about this, the lacquer had a strange reaction to the paint, and there's like cracks in the paint, which kind of actually looks cool. I mean, it's sort of a happy accident. I would be lying if I said I wish it didn't happen, but I don't mind that it did. So it's got these cracks in it. It's not super noticeable. You can see the sparkle in the light on the back of it. Got the alien guy here. There's a little bit of orange peel on the lacquer, and there's a little bit, dust and stuff, but I'm going to buff this. I'm going to lightly sand it with some steel wool very briefly and buff it down with a hand buffer just to get it to just shine up a little bit. And then what we'll do is we'll mount the neck on it and put the pickguard and hardware on it and see how it sounds. My buddy Phil Orasek from California built me this guitar, and it's burgundy mist, and it's some kind of a sassafras wood, something weird, and the lacquer on this guitar over time did something similar. So I've seen this before. It's strange. He's never had a guitar do that. So I wanted to just show you, if anybody knows who's like a chemist or really good with paint, let me know in the comments. But yeah, so that's what happened. Gonna buff it up. I'll show you it once it's buffed, and we'll put it together and check it out. Cool, let's do it. Okay, I got the body buffed, did a pretty basic job on it, but it looks really nice. Everything looks super shiny. I'm not gonna buff the headstock. It looks good enough as is. Now, from this point forward, everything here in this box is gonna go on this guitar, so we're gonna mount the pickguard and get the output jack put on there and the bridge and mount this neck, and hopefully not a lot of adjustments are going to be needed. Probably going to sand this out a little bit because the neck pocket is a little, we painted in there. Shouldn't have really done that. I should have taped that off. But we'll get it put together, so everything's ready. Just got to assemble it. Let's get going. Okay, we're going to start kitting this guitar together. Here's the pickguard. On the back of this pickguard, we've got a ground wire, and we've got the main plug for the output jack. So that should be pretty easy. Here's our little bridge. Here's the jack. And the main thing I'm looking for right now is the screws. I need the pickguard screws and the screws for the output jack. So those should be in this bag right here. All right, cool. So I'll put all the other pieces back in this box. So let me open this baggie up with our screws. I guess what I'll do is I'll mount this pickguard first. That probably makes the most sense. Get that on here, and then I can run the wires and what have you where they need to be. Actually on second thought, I think I'll run this the jack boat. Hopefully these holes for the routing for this plug, hopefully I'm able to get this thing through this hole, because this has got this plug on it. And a lot of times people that make these kits, they don't really think about this part right here having to go through a hole right there and then out this other side. So I may wind up actually unsoldering this piece I hate to say it, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thing through this hole. Let me try this real quick. Okay, on second thought, what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to run this output jack line through this hole. It was impossible to get this to go through that way. The angle was just not going to happen. So hopefully there's enough room inside here, which there probably is. That's probably the way it's intended, to be honest with you. And then this right here is our ground wire. So the ground wire is going to wind up going through the back side of the guitar, and this is going to attach to the claw. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I am running the ground wire through the back so it can go to the claw. And let me hold this in place real quick. Alright, so there's the ground wire. Everything is good there. And let's see if this pickguard plate mounts properly. These can be kind of tricky, to be honest with you. And sometimes they don't fit exactly the way they should. So we shall see. There's a lot of parts and components in these guitars. So trying to line up the pickups with the routing and not getting any cables pinched is really the most important thing. Alright, so something is not right. Let's see. Looks like it's a back. Looks like the pickup wires on the back of the bridge pickup. Okay. Alright, that seems to be okay. Something's not laying flush. Okay, I got the pickguard on. There's a line, there's a route that goes like this in the body. And it's always a problem trying to get these cables, the pickup wires, in a straight line, and sometimes you got to take a long screwdriver and poke the cables in a nice orderly fashion down the center so this will fit flush, and make sure you don't pinch anything. So now it's flush, everything looks good. I've got this output jack wire ready to go, and the ground wire on the back is through the back. Got to get out the pickup screws. I'm just gonna pull out a few things here. I need to get my magnet, my little magnet cup, so I don't lose any of this stuff, which I'm going to do here in just a minute. I'm going to separate these pickup screws. So let me get these pickup screws ready to go, and we'll mount this pickguard. Okay, if you don't have one of these magnetic bowls that hold your parts and pieces, I highly recommend getting one of these. This is extremely important. One thing I don't like about this kit, which is not a major deal, but all the screws and hardware were in one bag. I wish that the tuner screws and neck plate screws, everything, I wish they were all sorted out according to how they should be put on the guitar. Some beginner builders and even experienced builders, you got to look through this stuff and be careful. So you get the right screws for the right job. Looks like the pickup screws and the screws to mount the jack boat, all that stuff are the same. Okay, so I plugged the jack boat in, and that looks good. So what I'm going to do is get this jack boat mounted and the pickguard all at the same time. But it doesn't look like any of these screws are different for any of this stuff. Sometimes pickguard screws are a separate screw entirely. So these will be screws for the back plate, which I may leave off, but for right now I'll stick it on since we're building a kit. And I've got 11 screws, I believe, on this pickguard. Trying to screw this in and reach around the camera tripod is not the easiest thing in the world. Alright, so I'm going to go on and get this screwed in, and we'll be back in just a moment. I'm going to get all this done. Okay, that was quick work. We've got the pickguard on. Now I'm going to start taking the pickguard cellophane off of it. So one thing you got to have is one of these knob pullers. Yeah, I just said knob puller, but anyway, you take off these knobs. It's a lot easier than using a screwdriver. maybe messing something up or scratching your pickguard. So take these knobs off the guitar, and then you can pull the cellophane off the pickguard. It's a lot easier when you don't have strings on it. You know, the more I look at it, the more I think this cracked finish looks cool. Looks almost like there was a UFO crash landing or something. You know, kind of like Roswell. Alright, put these knobs back on, set them at 10 at the very top. Let's see, there we go. Alright, good deal. Now from this point forward, you have to mount the claw. The claw screw holes are right there. It's kind of guesswork when you initially put the claw in, because you don't really know how much tension you're going to have on the guitar tremolo bar when you start it. But you know, it's something that you can always adjust later. So I'm going through my screws here to find the claw screws. Alright, looks like these are the claw screws. These big ones here are the neck plate screws. These are going to be mounting screws for the tremolo. There should be 6 of those. And then there's going to be, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are for the tremolo. These are the trem springs for the claw. These are the neck plate screws, and those are for the straps. And these are for the tuners. There's our string trees, our string tree, our strap button washers, straps. Alright, good. And there's our little string tree washer, bushing, whatever you want to call it. And we've got our back plate screws right there. Make sure we keep those in here nice and handy. Alright, so this is something that's probably going to need to be soldered, because this has to get mounted on the claw. It doesn't look like there's any type of clip or anything for that, but that's okay. No big deal. So this can be a little tough to get in, because you've got to screw this in at an angle into these screws right there. So you just want to get them started. Like this. Get that out of the way. We're going to get this one started. I'm not going to screw these in very far, because when I put the springs on these, I want the springs to have as little tension as possible, so it'll be easier for me to mount the tremolo. Then we can decide how far in we want it. You don't want to screw them in too little, because you want there to be enough thread on these things to keep the springs from pulling the screws out. So alright, so good enough there, good enough. So that's in place. We'll get the claw springs out and ready to go. And here are the screws for the tremolo. We'll get these things ready. Man, this magnet is powerful. This thing is awesome. Alright, cool. So now what we're going to do is get the tremolo. Let me go grab that. I set that down somewhere. Let's see. There it is. Okay, this is real simple. I wonder if like one of a Fender Mexican tremolo would fit on this with a little bit bigger block. They sell for about 30-40 bucks. That wouldn't be a bad upgrade in the future. This one's not bad though, to be honest with you. So at this point, what we want to do is screw these in. Now one thing I do is, when screwing these, these in, when I get them down to the body, I don't screw them in super tight. I make sure there's a little bit of looseness in them, because that gives your bar the ability to bend forward. If it's really screwed down super tight, this bar is not going to want to move. So I like there to be a little bit of play in the bar. You can always, tighten the screws up in the claw in the back so tight that it's flush to the body. You don't want to use it, but I like there to be just a little bit of play. I mean, maybe a millimeter. Makes a little bit of difference. These are pretty lengthy screws because they hold this on, and there's a lot of tension on this bar. So I'm going to go ahead and screw these in off camera, then I'll flip it over and we'll mount the springs, okay? Alright, so the bridge is mounted. Here's what that looks like from a side angle. I got just a little bit of play, not much, okay? Now when we put the springs on this, the kit came with 3 springs, okay? And I'm going to solder this wire here in just a moment. So this is going to attach to the bridge right here, okay? So I'm trying to do this with one hand, which kind of sucks. That's what I was talking about earlier, where if you have these screwed in just a little too far, it's hard to get your springs easily mounted on this tremolo. All right, so there's one. Two. And we'll put this one right in the center. Now you could only put 2 on here if you wanted to. That'd provide a lot less tension. Just depends on how you want to set the guitar up. Alright, and this ground wire, we're going to solder it to this piece right here. Just going to hook it up underneath there. And I've got my soldering iron heated up and ready to go. I'm trying to do all this around a tripod. Doesn't really matter where you put this, as long as you get a good blob of solder on there and it's secure. Sometimes you have to scratch with a knife or something. You got to scratch the surface of this stuff because sometimes the solder doesn't want to stick. Alright. But I do believe that one, this is sticking pretty good. Nope. My German Shepherd's walking around the house. You might hear him walking around the floors and panting. Alright, this is soldered securely now. It is cooled off. over about 30 seconds. Feels pretty secure. So at this point you want to mount the back plate on here. These are where the strings go, so you can change strings easily. Most guys leave this plate off because we mess around with the springs quite frequently, and it's a little easier to change your strings without this plate, especially when they come out. Sometimes the ball of the string gets caught underneath here and that kind of stinks. So I'm going to go ahead and get these mounting screws for the back plate put on, and then we'll attach the neck. See how that fits. All right, the back plate is on. So actually, before we do the neck, I'm going to go ahead and get these strap buttons installed. That way the body will be complete. Everything on this Fesley kit was pre-drilled, which makes it really nice and convenient. Some kits that you get out there, you got to drill all the holes, which is cool. I mean, that's if you want to really experience doing all that stuff and work on your skills. I do not have my electric screwdriver in this shop where I'm working in my home shop area here. I miss having that, so I think I got to get me an extra one. Okay, so this one will go up here, pre-drilled hole. Trying to work around a tripod is not the easiest thing, once again. And I'm on a time crunch, so I'm trying to get this project wrapped up. All right, so cool. This is what the body looks like. All right, I like it. I'm actually digging these cracks. I hope that this lacquer continues to do this. It's not doing it on the back, which is strange. I wonder why it's only here on the front. But you know, it didn't do it really on the, well, it did. Not as bad though. I think that's actually pretty badass. A happy accident, right? As Bob Ross would say. Okay, I'm going to get the neck, and we're going to mount the neck on this guitar. And hopefully it fits in this neck pocket flush. And setting it up can be a challenge, so hopefully that goes smoothly. Okay, it's time to start neck prep to get the neck on the guitar. So we've got the tuners here. On the back of the headstock, this is really nice. The tuner, the holes are in place for the little screws. Once again, very nice to have that already to go. Makes this job a lot quicker, a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is separate all these tuners and the washers and everything together, just to speed up this process and to make sure everything is here. I've bought these kits before and had missing parts, and that really sucks when that happens. So let's see there. Okay, so we've got 6 of everything, 6 washers, 6 nuts, and 6 tuners. Okay, so what we're going to do here, you can't go wrong. There's not really one in particular tuner that has to go in a certain order. These are all the same. Sometimes you need to get a little bit of a little ball peen hammer or something, because these are pretty tight going in these holes, right? So I don't know if just pushing these in by just regular hand strength is going to do the trick. You can see there's a little bit of a gap right there. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if these thread. They kind of thread. I was going to see if I could thread it and pull these tuners up through the shaft of this. Off camera, I'm going to take a little hammer, a little mallet from StewMac, and I'm going to pound these in just a little bit so they're flush. You want to make sure that these little holes line up to the screws, the screw holes also, before you tighten these down really hard. Cool. I'm going to get these flush. All right, about a minute later, we've got these things ready. They're flush, and I've got them in line with the holes. So what we want to do, you can do them one at a time. Just for video's sake, I'm going to show you this way. Okay. These have little threads on them that thread inside the tuning machines. So I'm going to get them started by hand. Then I've got a tool I'm going to use to tighten them up real nice. All right, let me grab my StewMac tool. Okay, it's one of these guys here. It's that one right there. All right, so if you tighten them up really tight without the screws being in, you'll move that hole away from the screw hole that's on the tuner. So I'm just tightening it up pretty firmly, and then what I'll do is I'll get the screws put in the back, and then I'll just give them another twist to tighten them down to prevent any tuning stability issues. All right, good deal. So these little tiny screws are the screws for our tuning machines. They are tiny little buggers. I think this screwdriver that I've got will work. I've got some smaller ones just in case. Yeah, this one's working good. It can be kind of challenging. You know, these are very tiny screws. It takes a little bit of pressure to get them in here. It's easy to slip off the screw. It's easy to strip the screw. That really bites when you do that. So I find having a really nice quality long screwdriver like this works best. All right, so off camera, I'm going to go ahead and get these screwed in. All I'm doing here is lining up the holes with these tuning machines. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, I've got the string trees also mounted while I was doing the tuners. Got the tuners ready to go and operative. You can take this white plastic off the back of the tuners. That's just kind of like a scratch guard. It comes on all, you know, generic tuners that you buy. Just a scratch guard, so we'll take these off. Sometimes I leave it on. I always forget it, but I'm like, oh, it looks so much better without them on there. Riveting content here. Watching some dude peel off the scratch decals off the back of some cheap tuners. All right, cool. So these all seem to work. I've looked at them. I've tested them out. So, you know, hey, it is what it is. Looks good. Once again, S4 is another name for Area 51. Now, the moment of truth, whether this guitar is really going to be playable is now. We put the neck in the pocket here, and it's a pretty nice fit. All right, so I'm just basically just testing it out right now. Sorry for the bad camera work. That fits perfectly. All right, so for those of you who will ask later about how flush this neck fits, being very careful because it's not screwed in, that's what this neck pocket looks like. It looks really good. I mean, this thing fits perfectly. Couldn't be happier about that. Now, hopefully these holes are lined up for this neck plate. I'm sure it is, but that's always a concern. So this neck plate's got a little plastic piece on it. That's cool. Protects the finish of the body. It's a more secure seal. I will tell you one thing from experience with these kits. You've got to be really careful and not over tighten these neck screws, because these aftermarket neck screws are not they are not very sturdy. I mean, it gets real hot when you're screwing these things in, and you can break them off easily. You might think, oh, I need to crank this down a little tighter. Just get them tight. Don't overdo it, because they get really hot when you're turning them in here, and I've had them break off. Then you got to get out some vice grips and pull them out and twist them out. It really sucks, to say the least. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to need to shim this neck or what we're going to need to do. This neck fits so flush inside this body and so perfectly. I'm under the impression and hopes that really with a little bit of truss rod and bridge saddle work, hopefully minimal, that these I won't need to do any kind of shims or anything like that. All right, so I just got these regular tightness. I did not over tighten. All right, it is in. So what I'm going to do is put some strings on the guitar. Now this bridge is not set up, it's not intonated. What I'm gonna do to intonate this. Now this is a poor man's intonation job. Intonation should stair step. They should be lower, a little bit higher and higher, then lower, a little higher and higher, and they almost kind of match each other in a stair step fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stair step these by eyesight. Now that's not going to be perfect, but what that's going to do is that's going to give me a closer idea if this thing's going to, it's going to get me closer to real intonation. But without the strings on it, these things are easier to maneuver. So I'm going to try to kind of match this one. This is just, a basic get started on intonation. Now, not every guitar is going to be like this, okay? But for the most part, you'll see a stair step type of appearance when it comes to intonation. And they will match each other, the three strings, very, very closely. All right, so we'll call it at that for now. Good enough. I'm going to put strings on this thing, and I'll report back as far as setup. Okay, we've got strings on it, and the bridge is fixed to the body like that. That's how I like it, so that's going to be fine. Now, one thing about this guitar is the action is way too low. So I got to raise and lower these appropriately, and also potentially adjust the truss rod tension. So I'm reaching into the bag here to get out the truss rod wrench and the saddle wrench. So I'm going to take a look at the action of these strings. So the low E string, looks like there's far too much, first of all, there's far too much relief on this neck. I can see that the neck is bowed like this. So I have to tighten up the truss rod significantly, and then I'm gonna have to raise up the saddles a little bit here. So as far as truss rod adjustments, let me move the camera over here, sorry about that. So let's see here. Going to move the D and the G string out of the way, like this. Okay, get these out of the way, or at least partially out of the way. And to tighten up the truss rod, you want to go to the right, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So I'm going to give it a good maybe quarter to half turn. Normally I can't see if a neck has a lot of curve to it. Usually it's, you know, it's not that visible, but this one was really, I could just really visually just see it, which is fine. I mean, they probably ship it, you know, they don't have the truss rod adjusted at all. They just assemble it. It's not on the guitar, so there's no way for them to have this neck perfect out of the box. That would be, you know, expectation on that would be is too high. So we're going to kind of just adjust this by sight. It's kind of trial and error. Okay, I've got the strings pretty well up to tension. I mounted the tremolo bar, so that's what the height of the bar looks like from player's angle. And I've got to adjust pickup heights. I'm going to raise these pickups just a little bit. I'm going to leave the center one down a little bit because it'll get in the way of my picking, so it's going to stay a little bit low, but I'm going to raise these up significantly, and we'll give it a play test. So yeah, this came together easily. Everything fit well. The saddles, I adjusted the heights of the saddles, and they look, hopefully you can see that on camera, but that's what the saddle heights look like for now. There's no fret buzz that I identified. I've got the truss rod adjusted properly. So came together nicely. So I'll put the back plate on after I do the play test to make sure everything's good. But for now, looks like it's ready. Hopefully it works. All right, everybody, the build is complete. I hope you enjoyed the video. For $100, $119, maybe $99 on sale, I don't think you can beat these guitar kits. You know, it needed a little bit of setup, which is normal. But you know, if you know a little bit about setups or want to dabble in some guitar setups and building for an affordable cost, I highly recommend the Fesley ST model. All their guitar kits are nice, and you know what? These pickups sound good. I'm going to play out with a little bit of a demo here on this Boss Katana. And if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. Have a great day. Peace out.